Welcome to your PMA Pro membership, your gateway to continued professional product marketing development. Whether you're new to the industry or an experienced practitioner, we've covered all bases with our variety of specialist content, including on-demand presentations, templates, exclusive content, mentors, toolkits, learning paths, and more. So let's take a look at exactly what could be all yours as a Pro member. Starting with exclusive articles, jam-packed with in-depth insights from experts at companies like Google, LinkedIn, HubSpot, and Drift. And we add new pieces to your dashboard every single week. Your template hub is packed with 50 plus vetted and tested templates and frameworks designed to streamline fundamental processes. Used by companies such as Slack, Microsoft, Twitter, and TikTok, rest assured, you and your team will be equipped with the best materials to enhance your practice. And better yet, we add new templates into your plan every month. Here at PMA, we have a busy event schedule year-round, and as a Pro member, you'll get access to every presentation on demand to enjoy whenever and wherever you please. Better yet, you won't have to pay a cent to attend our virtual festivals and summits. The discounts don't stop there either. As a Pro member, you'll also get 10% off our suite of certification programs. After a structured learning experience, then our product marketing learning paths and toolkits are for you. Whether you've got a positioning overhaul on the horizon, want to upskill in sales enablement, or plan for next quarter's product launch, each toolkit and path features presentations, templates, and guides that'll help you hit the ground running and continue your professional development furthermore. Moving on to our peer councils. They're the perfect platform for live, virtual interaction, and the monthly gatherings allow you to connect with an intimate pod of product marketing leaders to strategize and collaborate. And last but not least is our mentor program. Whether you want to be a mentor, mentee, or both, you can accelerate your personal and professional growth by learning from product marketing heavyweights all over the world. So, with product marketing teams at globally recognized brands such as IBM, TikTok, Uber, and Amazon reaping the benefits of the stellar content on offer, why shouldn't you? Sign up for your PMM Pro membership and access a never-ending flow of tried, tested, and recommended tactics, learn from the leading lights in the industry, fast-track your professional development, and accelerate your career trajectory.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Product Marketing Trailblazers. Hope you enjoyed the first session this morning. We've got another jam-packed session for you now, beginning with the lovely Kelly Anderson, who is the head of product marketing of user protection services at Google Cloud. Just before I hand over to Kelly, I want to remind everyone this is a live session. We saw awesome engagement and questions in the first round. So if you do have questions, comments, feedback, thoughts, please do add them in the chat, and I'll be hopping on with Kelly afterwards and we can run through them. So yeah, without further ado, welcome to Product Marketing Trailblazers. Kelly, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rose. And again, like Rose said, my name is Kelly, and I am super excited to talk to you today about how we as product marketers can do more with less. So my session today is all about 5 assets that I believe every product marketer should have, and the 15 ways that we can repurpose them. So just to give you an idea of what to expect today, I'll start off with an introduction about myself and my background. We'll go through some of the top content creation challenges that product marketers are facing today. I will discuss with you the 5 key assets that I believe every product marketing manager should build, and then the 15 ways that we can repurpose them based on our goals, our channels available to us, and our target audience. Then I will provide some examples for us to practice repurposing content based on all of that information that I have shared. We'll practice doing more with less together. And then I will conclude with some information about how you can reach me, and then we'll have some time for question and answer. So to get started, like Rose said, my name is Kelly, and I currently lead product marketing for all of the security products that protect businesses' customers. Prior to working in the online fraud space for Google, I was working on Google's security management, threat detection, and response products. And then prior to Google, I was at Microsoft, also working in the cloud. And I marketed a variety of security products as well as business continuity products. So far, I have over 5 years of experience in tech product marketing, and specifically in cloud and security. So based on my experiences and my background with product marketing, I've come to find that these are some of our top challenges with being able to create effective content that aligns with our goals, our target audience, and our channels. So our first content creation challenge that I'm sure many of you are very familiar with is budget. So in 2020, 47% of product marketing budgets were in the $0 to $250,000 range, and only 6% of product marketing teams had a budget of over 1 million. So if we fast forward to this year, in 2021, 67% of product marketing teams now have a budget between $0 and $250,000. And that budget, as we know, is not just reserved for content, right? We need to use that budget for software and internet tools, for customer research, for competitive research, and even conferences. So then our next challenge is our time, right? Like I had just mentioned in my previous point about budget, we're not just responsible for creating content all day. We also are responsible for creating the go-to-market strategy for a product, launching products, landing products, enabling sales, like the list goes on. And so with so much that we have to do, there just isn't enough time just to dedicate to creating content. Our next challenge is stakeholder alignment. So even though product marketing conducts market research and we represent the voice of the customer, sometimes our stakeholders think that they know more about what customers want. In my experience, I have had many conversations with my sales team, with my product managers, where they tell me that a specific asset like a blog or a data sheet is something that their customers really want, but it's just not in alignment with the research that I have. And so sometimes it can be hard for us to create content when it doesn't align with what our stakeholders see as being valuable. The next challenge are people's attention spans, right? So a study recently conducted by Microsoft indicated that now people start to lose concentration after 8 seconds. And this has been falling for years, and it's at an all-time low. So if we know that people are only paying attention for 8 seconds, how do we create effective content to grab their attention and inspire them to do what we want them to do? Our next challenge is noise. There is so much information out there. There are estimates that Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Facebook store at least 1,200 petabytes between them. So if we know that people have short attention spans, and if we know that there's so much information out there, how do we make our content stand out from the noise to reach our target audience? And then the last challenge that we face with creating content is promotion. There are so many different channels available to product marketers. We have social media, we have a web page, we have events, we have press articles. And sometimes you might not even be in charge of that channel. So for example, at Google, we have a dedicated social media team. So if we don't own the channel, or if we're not aware of all of the different channels available to us, how do we get our content to our target audience? What if I told you there was a way to build effective content within budget that would be easy to promote, excite your stakeholders, and engage with your target audience? I hope many of you are feeling like this meme right now, because we do have some answers. To help us with all of the content creation challenges that I mentioned, I believe that every product marketer should have these 5 key assets in their bill of materials. And these 5 assets are a customer-facing pitch deck, a data sheet, a customer reference, a high-level product overview video, and a web page. So let's get into these 5 assets and the 15 different ways that we can repurpose them. Now, I want to preface this with 2 things. One, I'm going to be speaking to this from my background and my perspective of working in the business to business or B2B space. And 2, these are not just the 15 assets that you can recreate. There are so many different assets like podcasts, white papers, product demos that would be great assets to recreate. But just for the purposes of our conversation today, I'm just sticking with these 15. So let's get started with the customer-facing pitch deck. So the customer-facing pitch deck, as many of you are probably familiar, is it follows a very similar pattern of opening up and talking about challenges that your target audience is facing to nicely lead to your product and how that product is a solution to that problem. And as you progress in your customer pitch deck, you start to get into the specifics of your product, whether it's a feature, you're talking about a roadmap, you're talking about pricing, you're talking about customer references, you're talking about upcoming events, you name it. The goal of the customer-facing pitch deck, as we know as product marketers, is to not only have strong storytelling, but reflect our messaging and positioning and our key value props. So from that, we can create these 3 assets: an analyst deck, an event deck, and a webinar deck. So starting with the analyst deck, like I said, I work primarily in the business to business space. And so we work with analysts. You can think of them as third-party consulting firms to write papers, not only about my products, but also about products that play in that space as a way to help businesses understand what is the best product for their business. And so because that customer-facing pitch deck is rich in so much information, it will be very easy for you as a product marketing manager to take most of that content into an analyst deck, but just make very slight tweaks to it. Maybe this particular analyst cares about a specific feature or a specific thought leadership theme or a specific moment in time. But because you have 80% of the content already produced in this customer-facing pitch deck, it should require very little effort and very little budget for you to flesh out the remaining 20%. Very similar approach for an event deck, right? As I'm sure many of you are familiar with, a lot of times there are first party, so your company will have events. You will also attend third party or industry events, or the event might be defined as your actual product launch. And so you can take, again, all of that richness, all of that goodness in your customer-facing pitch deck and appropriately tailor it to whatever the theme is for that particular event. So for an example, since I work in the online fraud space, I have a customer-facing pitch deck all about how my products protect against online fraud and abuse. But I might have an event that is focused and tailored around protecting against credit card fraud or protecting against fraud for retailers during the holiday season. And so I can take the existing material that I have in that deck and just word it and position it so that it is a solution or it is aligned to that particular theme. And then same thing for a webinar, right? A lot of times we as product marketers have webinars as part of launching our products and getting all of the goodness about our product or features out into the market. And so maybe for this particular webinar, you're doing a deep dive on some pricing changes. Maybe you have bundled your product with other products in your organization. Maybe you are integrating your product into a product that is third party. And you want to make sure that your customers know what's going on and are going to be successful with that integration or new bundling. And so that customer-facing pitch deck, it already has pricing information, so you can just drill deeper into it for your webinar deck. So let's move to the second asset that we can repurpose, which is a data sheet. And again, I think many of you as product marketers are very familiar of the formatting of a data sheet. So a data sheet is usually anywhere from 1 to 3 pages tops in length, and very similar to the flow and the format of a customer-facing pitch deck. It starts out with problems, challenges. This is a great space to throw big numbers like those startling statistics because of the spacing. It really draws your target audience in, seeing those bold numbers, those bold claims. Then you nicely move into how your product is a solution for it, anything that's especially differentiated, and then you close with a call to action. And so what's great about a data sheet is that the customer pitch deck can be way more pithy, can be way more lengthy because you have much more space. But the data sheet, you have to be very pithy, right? You just got to jump to the point, explain the value of your product, and continue moving forward. And so because you have such concise content, it's very easy to translate that into a one-pager. So let's say, for example, you have a data sheet going through everything I mentioned, but you want to have a one-pager that is unique to a specific event or a sales meeting that one of your sales representatives will have with a bunch of executives. You can pull all of that goodness that you have on your data sheet and then make it specific towards the theme of the event and how your product is working to be a part of that theme for the event, or how it is in alignment with what these executives at the meeting, briefing, inquiry are looking at. Same thing with an FAQ, right? Data sheet, again, we're really concise on the information that is presented here. And so with an FAQ, this is either something that you're creating for your sales team to be prepared for questions that they will have from customers, or these are questions that your sales team questions that your sales team will get from customers, or questions that you are preparing your sales team to potentially get from customers. And so what's great about the data sheet is you could essentially just take what is in the data sheet and reformat it into a Q&A format. And this will save you a bunch of time from having to go and make a new FAQ. Competitive battle card, right? I think, especially in the enterprise space, one of the most common questions my sales team gets is, how are our products different from blank, or blank has this feature, does our product have this feature? And what's really great is that our data sheets should have, right, those key features, those key things that are differentiated about our product that would make it really easy for us as product marketers to pull those highlights out and then map it to okay, this is what our competitors are doing, and here's how we rank against that. And then lastly, for the data sheet, a newsletter, right? We know that people have very short attention spans. I imagine you and your customers don't enjoy getting long emails. And so what's nice is you can take the information that's on the data sheet and reformat it so it's short, or you could do a series of newsletters where you just take one chunk of the newsletter at a time and repurpose that into one newsletter or a series of newsletters. So our third asset is the customer reference. And probably like a lot of product marketing managers, this one is my favorite. And the reason why is one of the key elements, I would say, for success for our role is our storytelling skills, right? But it's so much more powerful when we have a customer that is telling our story and echoing the value of the product than just our company talking about it, right? And so with a customer reference, we actually have someone to be that voice of the customer. And the first way that I want us to think about using this customer reference is with a blog post. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I am challenged when I have a smaller launch. So maybe it's not for a top tier feature or for a product, but I still need to generate awareness. It's not strong enough to just have a blog post on its own. And so one of the things that I will do is I will take an existing customer reference and I will weave that story into the announcement blog post. A customer reference is also great for a blog post where if you just need to continue to reiterate, right, drive that awareness in the market of your product's value prop, instead of feeling like a marketer, you're just saying the same thing over and over again, you can have a customer be that voice that is echoing what you're saying. We can also use a customer reference as a quote for a website. So think about how powerful, right? Think about the experience that you're going to create for your customers when they go to your product webpage and they see a well-known or a well-respected brand associated with your product, right? It's going to do so many things for them. It's going to give them peace of mind. It's going to give them confidence. It's going to give them intrigue. Like, maybe they'll enter the contact us form, sign up, top a funnel, you'll get a new lead. Like, never underestimate, even if it's small, the power of your product being associated with a customer. The next thing that your customer reference can be used for is a press article, right? We know that when we're getting ready to launch products, we can work with journalists to work with them in advance so that they will write a story to amplify our announcement when the product launches. But just like we as marketers love to tell stories through an actual customer, our partners in the press love to do the same thing. And so you can give them a customer reference to either include those customer snippets in the press release that they're writing, or you can have them reach out to that customer altogether and they can do an interview with that customer for your launch. Next thing is an email campaign. So very similar to the newsletter with taking a data sheet and slicing and dicing it for newsletter content, you can do that with a customer reference. Some customer references are very lengthy and extensive, and it can be a lot, right? People got short attention spans to sit with it and stomach with it all in one sitting. And so an email campaign is a nice way to actually take your customers through the product, through the lens of a customer, because you're dividing it up over a period of time. And then the last thing is a thought leadership article. So again, maybe your business has budget for it, maybe you don't, maybe you own a thought leadership platform. So maybe this thought leadership platform is Forbes or it's the Wall Street Journal, and you have the opportunity to showcase your thought leadership there instead of just doing the regular product value prop, overview, messaging, positioning, if you can show your thought leadership through a customer, it'll be all that much more powerful, because again, depending on who your target audience is, people care what their competitors are doing. So maybe that thought leadership platform isn't the best platform for your target audience, but it does start to raise awareness that not only is your product associated with customers that are thought leaders, but your customers are also going to be perceived as thought leaders. And their competition will take note of that because their customers will take note of that. The fourth asset is a high-level product overview video. Now, one of our constraints is budget, right? You can create a high-level product overview video through in-house tools. So for example, iMovie, right? But if you do have budget of all of the 5 key assets here, I would say you can do those 4 on your own. I would highly encourage you to invest in using budget towards an overview video, because once you have that overview video, especially once you have that copy, it is going to be so easy for you to slice and dice it. And the first way that you could slice and dice it is through a social media promotional video. So what I mean by that is I have experience, and I know I get this feedback from my social media team, that any type of content that is engaging, people can watch it, people can click it, they are much more likely to engage with whatever you're promoting. And so maybe they won't watch the full 1 to 2 minute overview video, but they will definitely tune in for 10 seconds of that. And same thing with an interactive infographic. You can take that high level video, especially because you have the files, and reorder it into an interactive infographic. And very similar to the data sheet, where if you have these really staggering statistics or these bold claims that you're making, an interactive infographic is an awesome way to do that, because those beautiful statistics supported by the value prop of your data is just a very personalized and yet involved way of telling a story about your product. And then the last asset is a web page. So I know I keep hitting on, we're all strapped for time, we're strapped for budget, we're strapped for attention spans, but I know a lot of product marketers don't really do their messaging and positioning framework until they're preparing for a product launch. And one of the main assets that they create for that product launch is a product web page. So you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone by having your messaging and positioning framework, writing that and building that, also be very similar to your web page, right? Because your web page, it absolutely should reflect your key value prop, your differentiated features, your messaging, your positioning. And so if you are crunched for time, especially leading up to a product launch, this is a great way to have a fantastic web page, but also very strong messaging and positioning framework. So with that said, I'm going to just walk us through, because I know we've got about 5 minutes left, some examples of how we can repurpose content to achieve our goals. So let's just start with a very broad example, a very broad goal, and we can get more specific with the goal in the next slide, is to drive product awareness and adoption, right? Pretty common for a marketer to have that type of goal. We want to target an executive. The channels we have available to us are the web, a third-party consultant, and our sales team. We take an asset from the 5 key assets that every product marketer should have, and we repurpose it into things like press articles or articles on third-party platforms, an analyst presentation, an analyst paper, and a 1-pager. Let's do a more specific goal. we as marketers, right, we like for things to be strategic. We like for them to be measurable. We love showing impact. So this goal is to add 300 new leads to the existing pipeline in Q2. And so for this example, we now want to target the user of our product. And so the channels that we have available are email, web, and events. And not only from those 5 key assets is it a one-to-one mapping, right? You have this key asset, you can repurpose it one way, but you can take those 5 key assets and also repurpose them multiple ways. And so we see that here with this example of the customer-facing pitch deck. You can make it a gated white paper, you can make it a gated infographic. Same thing with an event. You can take that customer-facing pitch deck and make it a deck for a session, or you can take that high-level video and make it a product demo at a booth, and assuming both require registration. So these assets help with your goal of getting new leads. And then just to make sure that we're still staying on time, so let's start doing more with less today. So my homework for all of you is to make a list of all of your current assets. I would not ask you to do anything that I have not done myself, so I have done this. Step 2, I want you to organize your assets under the 5 key assets. Step 3, I want you to revisit your goals, your target audience, your channels, and any other important information. So budget, whatever you have access to. Then I want you to determine the additional content you need for the remainder of the period. And this can be defined by you. It could be for the year, it could be for the quarter, it could be for the half. And then based on that asset list, your goals, and what content you need, any content that you make, I want you to repurpose it from the existing content. So thank you so much for attending today. It was a pleasure to speak with all of you. I know I threw a lot at you. We're flying fast. But if you would like to get in contact with me, here is my LinkedIn link, and here is my Twitter handle. And I know we've got 2 minutes left, but I'm happy to take any questions. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rose.
Absolutely. I mean, that was such an informative session and some great examples there at the end, Kelly. So really appreciate it. I want to just jump back to a bit of a discussion that was happening earlier on in the chat, where you were mentioning kind of repurposing your web page into messaging and positioning framework. But do you have like a company-wide messaging and positioning framework that you're starting from? And is this product specific, or would the messaging framework come before the web page?
Yeah, great question. So I would say my experience has been the larger a company is, they will give you a template for a messaging positioning framework. I know that we have a wide variety of people attending, from small businesses to startups to enterprises. And so that's not always the case. You can always get a template online, but I know you probably run the risk of like, is this legitimate? But what you want to write and communicate for your web page usually very nicely transitions into a messaging positioning framework, in the sense of, you've usually got those 3 key things that you want to say about your product. You list the benefits, you list the proof points, and that is all translatable from web page to messaging positioning framework to web page. And I also included that because sometimes, like depending on how big your marketing team is or how much time you have before that launch, you do not have time to do the like messaging positioning framework, like do messaging testing with it, then create content, right? Like you're so scrapped on so many levels. And so that's why, if you're like, I just got to get something out there, start with the web page and then use that as your template for messaging and positioning. And then you can always go back in after a launch and refine it and revise it.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of on that same thread, we've got a question. It's like, how often should you be updating these core assets? And should all edits go through a single product marketer, or who can kind of own and update these?
Yeah, great question. So you should update your 5 key assets in alignment with how your product changes. So like no news is good news, or you should update it if your messaging changes, right? Like I know from my experience, I did market research or I did messaging testing, and I did that after I wrote something, and what I wrote was way off. Like I did it in the wrong order, and it was way off. And so I had to go back and revise my messaging and then revise my assets. So if your messaging research changes, or if your product changes, go back and update your assets.
Some great advice and an awesome session. There's lots of lovely comments. If you want to jump in to the LinkedIn chat, I would recommend it. But yeah, thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us and for sharing your wisdom. And stay tuned, everybody, because we are going to be right back with another session.
Thank you so much.